Hi, everybody. I am Anjanette, and I am here with my fabulous co-host, Orlette Monegro. And today we are here with you from Souls Code. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about some things that we feel are important to really help you get those outcomes that you're looking for, whether it's you working with your child, having your child reach those outcomes, or for yourself to really reconnect with what's going on in your own personal life. Because if you were a client of hers, you would be struggling too. If your child is struggling, you're struggling. It's hard for a parent to sit there and watch their child struggle and not feel a sense of I don't know the word I want to use, but you feel like you just really can't help them the way that you need to. So you feel like kind of at a loss. And that does have an impact on the parent, not just the child. And a lot of people think that just the child is impacted. And even though they are impacted in a different way, the parents do too, because we internalize that as well. So I work with people in health, and a lot of times they feel like what's going on with them is an exterior problem, and it's really an interior problem. Things that they've held on to, trauma that they've experienced, or things that were told to them as far back as when they were a child, and they've developed a poor self-concept, and that's what keeps them stuck because they don't know how to unravel some of that. So today we're going to talk a little bit about inner game. So follow us if you will, because when we get talking we just so so Laura, what do you think about what I just said?
Hey, yeah, thank you so much. So as I think about the concept of just that whole inner game when we approach a task or different life situations, I think about how critical that is because one of the issues, especially in working with children who have speech and language delays or may have other kind of developmental learning issues, is the whole concept of acceptance. And acceptance, just that first kind of stop that we would have to make in a process of being able to then work with a child, whether we're the parent or therapist or anybody else, the teacher, anybody that's going to be involved, requires that inner game shift, um, where we can see possibility, where we can reassess what we're seeing in front of us, because it's very easy to see limitations as opposed to see the capabilities that may not be so visible. So shifting that inner game, being ready, getting yourself organized to the task and the goal that you're after, setting benchmarks that are attainable in route to that process of that ultimate outcome desired, requires an inner game of constant reminder and self coaching and motivating the self in that process, because not every day is going to be easy. Not every day is going to be fun. And not every day will you achieve the outcomes that you set for that day or that encounter. So if we don't keep ourselves present, what are we after? What is the goal? One foot in front of the other. We may feel defeated, we may give up, you know, and this is especially critical for parents when the little ones aren't even talking and the parents are the ones that are very emotionally, upset and overwhelmed with the situation. They need to work through that, need to remind themselves, wait a minute, I'm the parent. Wait a minute, my child is codependent on me because they're a minor. They don't know how to do this themselves by themselves. There's an issue that they're not doing it independently and naturally. I have to support that child, but I also have to support myself as a parent. And that's all inner work because you have to work through that whole roller coaster of emotions. That things aren't as you would have wanted or imagined or desired from your innermost being. There's that emotional, social component too tied to all of that. Because we all want to show off our kids. Oh, my kid is running, and my kid is jumping, my kid is swimming, my kid is a dancer, my kid is this. We all do that. We don't necessarily set out to do it on purpose, but even in conversations with another, we might be, boasting if the kid is the one with the trophy, the one that got the best, won the spelling bee, won all of these things. So we have to start now shifting how we look our children, but also how we are looking from within ourselves. So we can connect more, so we can build that relationship from a foundation of trust that has nothing to do with achievement, from a foundation of love, foundation of kindness and awareness. All of these things that bind and help relationships to grow. And it begins with the self.
It all begins with self. And when we talk about like different stages of development, people are not necessarily lagging. Everybody develops at a different stage. Even people that don't have disadvantages or don't have speech and language problems have a different rate of development and understanding. So I think society as a whole has to stop with the comparison, or like those sentences, my child's doing this, or my child. Yes, everybody feels like their child is the center of attention,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe they should look at the milestones that their child is achieving that they didn't know were possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because that gives you that hope, that gives you that motivation to continue to set those goals and look in and see, and even those little points, looking in and saying, well, how are you supporting that child that made the difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
And were you supporting yourself at that same time? Because if we're not showing up for ourselves, we're certainly not showing up for our children in an effective manner, right? So I think that today in society, there's not a lot of reflection. We had spoken about this on another
Yeah.
show, that there's not a lot of looking in. And I was just on a show recently. We were reading a book by Maxwell about reflection and different things we should ask ourselves, when we're entering into these days, what we're setting ourselves up for, those
Mm-hmm.
priorities, those goals,
Mm-hmm.
and what we're trying to attain, and not beating ourselves up if we didn't do it, but reflecting at the end of the day and saying, why is it that I didn't reach this? What part of of me played in that not achieving it? Was it
Mm-hmm.
fear that was showing up for me? Was it, overwhelm? To look at those
Mm-hmm.
different pieces so that we can use that insight to maybe have a better day tomorrow. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that a lot of people do that inner work. And most of what I do is inner work,
Yeah.
whether they know it or not. Most of what I do is that inner work with them, getting them to shift their beliefs about what healthy is, what,
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle choices is really about. That, a lot of people feel very deprived when they approach health, and it's not, there's no deprivation involved. It's really a shift in what's healthy and what
Mm-hmm.
feeds my body, and
Mm-hmm.
um looking at health in a different way, because you hear a lot about good foods and bad foods, and no foods are bad if you're eating them correctly in,
Mm-hmm.
moderation and stuff like that. You could really eat anything, but you should be eating more of the good stuff than the bad,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's that inner work too, reframing what we've been taught, because a lot of times we're taught things that aren't necessarily correct, and those incorrect teachings have been carried down from generation to generation, and we've been living them so long that we can't see the difference sometimes between reality and fable, and a lot of them
Hmm.
were fables or other people's stories that we're taking into to our lives, and
That's true.
they are just stories like the boogeyman under the bed. Now kids
That's
are
true.
afraid of a child, and was there ever a boogeyman under the bed? Probably not. It could have been someone who said that, if you don't behave, the boogeyman will get you. Where's the boogeyman, Daddy? Underneath the bed. Didn't you see him? It could have been some things. I mean, that's just, not that's not with any specificity what I'm talking about. It's just trying to guide you. And what I mean, these, as far as stories go, these stories are carried down, and it's like that telephone game. You don't know where it started, but what was said in the beginning and how it ended up is a very different thing. And society as a whole is that telephone game, because it started with those small concepts as kids. Don't eat that, that's no good for you, which only made the kid want
Yeah.
it more, right? Don't eat that, it'll make you fat more. or
Yeah.
or come on, you've had enough, don't make a pig of yourself. Like these little
Hmm.
things
Yeah.
stay with children, and they're internalized, and they stay with adults too.
Absolutely.
It's not just children, but we take those and we form new meanings out of them. And it's really about where we're at in our life at that point, what meaning we take with us out of them, out of those words and things that we hear. So that inner reflection and that inner work helps you kind of unravel all the stories and say, okay, well, this is good for Mary Jo and Bobby Sue, but it's not so good for Andra and Laurelette, right? So we're going to take this story and we're going to make it into something else, and we're going to redesign this whole
Hmm.
scenario, right? And develop our own story, and
But
decide.
that's actually very hard to do. It's one of the hardest things to do, the self-work. And
Absolutely.
it's so hard that it is the reason why, sometimes we give into pressures. Like people want you to produce or create or do or whatever, but people may not even know what kind of troubles you may have within that you need to address first. There might be a whole bunch of problems in your personal life that need your attention, not necessarily to do what other people are expecting of you. But I find that people give in. They give in into, oh, I gotta produce, I gotta make this idea for everybody else, and they live in like an alternate reality.
I agree, but a lot of times, but when people talk about problems in their personal life, then they are talking about needing to do inner work, because there's not a soul in this world that doesn't have one problem or another, whether it's in their relationships, whether it's in their
Correct.
vocation, or it's in their finances. Somebody is always lacking in one area or another, and that comes from that inner work too. When I was growing up, we heard all the time, money doesn't grow on trees, you know?
Right.
So I
All
had
the
to,
time.
so I had to tell myself, well, maybe they should, or maybe they do. Are you sure? So I started changing that story for myself, and it really, I'm not saying it's simple. So you have all these people out there talking about the law of
Yeah.
attraction, and what you think and what you feel, your thinking becomes
Yeah.
your belief system and all that stuff. That's very true. But it's not just about sitting down and writing a bunch of stuff like scripting, I'm beautiful, happy, healthy, and whole. Or, I'm in my perfect body it's not just that simple. You do have to, because everybody would have what they want. You do have to do that work to see where those patterns and those behaviors came, and then reframe them. So, and it's repetitive,
It
because
is.
those stories are always going to come up. When you've been living the same story for 30 years, there are always going to be triggers of that story, because it became that story and it caused that problem because it hurt you in some way. It,
It leaves an imprint.
or it made you really happy in some way. Maybe you'll always put ice cream with happiness, right? So every time you're happy, you gotta have that ice cream, right?
Mhm.
So you have to reframe that. Well, maybe when I'm happy, I can draw something really nice. What you have
Mhm.
to see where it connects to disconnect. In order to sever those ties, you have to see what brought them together, right? And people say, "Oh, you just speak from a place of," and I think to myself, if it was that easy, oh my God, I would have everything I want. But I know it's not that easy. And I know that it takes constant work and constant reframing. And you do have to feel it in every sense of your being. Like people that are trying to grow their business, right? They tell you you can't be in scarcity and be in abundance. So if you're always worrying about your being broke and paying your bills, then you're not on the same alignment or energy as abundance. So someone who says they're going to be rich isn't checking their bank account every day. What
Yeah, even if they don't have the money, they're
they're
just, you know
but
what,
they're
they realize
living
hard things. They may realize, I don't have the money. What's the plan? How am I going to tackle this? Right? There's a realism about it. It
is
isn't this
realism.
delusional.
No, it's not delusional. There's realism, but there's stepping into the person that you're becoming, right? So, like when I was on my weight loss journey, right? I told myself every day, my perfect body of 125 pounds, because that's what I wanted to get to at that point, right? And I just kept telling myself that every day. So I don't waver in that weight to this day. So, like there are different reasons the scale could be off. So some days I might be a couple of pounds heavier or a couple of pounds lighter, but I always stay in that range. I don't get on the scale and see 160 and say, oh shit, it's time to die again. Because because I've changed those patterns and behaviors that got me there,
Right.
that got me to that body that I didn't want, right? So
Right.
and it was work and it was a lot of inner work. Why was my self-esteem low? What made me feel like I wasn't able to achieve the outcomes I wanted? What did I need to do? What was I doing when I was in that good body? And how
Hmm.
did I get from here to here? And now how do I take that step back? Right.
Hmm.
So it is about creating that plan, but I had to own that 125-pound
Right.
body before I could become it, right?
Right.
So I had to act as if I was. So I might have looked crazy at 300 pounds, walking around like the sexiest woman in the world, because that's what I told myself. I'm sexy, hot, everybody wants it. Everybody, I would have these ridiculous things that I would say to myself on the course of the day. Not that, of course, um, but I would just say these ridiculous things.
I
You
just
want
imagine.
me. Like I'd look at people on the train and have these little conversations with myself. You want me. Like all these crazy, crazy things. Because I had to feel that way again and laugh at myself again. I had to because it wasn't funny, but I had to find the humor in it to
Right.
stop
Well,
feeling sorry in it. Right. You
right.
know,
You develop mental toughness, right? It's almost like you develop not only that mental resiliency, but at the same time, the rejection of anything that wasn't but what you already said it would be. And so this is where an absolute value of truth came for you to be. And so I marvel at this as you're sharing it, because that is the very concept. Sometimes it doesn't mean that you're not facing the difficulty. It doesn't mean that whether that be the child is having this issue, it doesn't mean that the child doesn't have a delay. It doesn't mean that the bank account is overdrawn. It doesn't mean, yes, that's all could be very well and happening. It's your response to that while you hold alive and very alive and well, the understanding of what you are creating. And that's what you did every time you were able to laugh at all kinds of things and create this magnetism for this person within you that you already envisioned 125 pounds.
my husband thought I was crazy too because I used to put on headphones and
No,
envision.
I get it.
I used to put on headphones and listen to my affirmations that I
Yes.
created for myself. of
That's fine.
what I needed, like of who I was becoming, what I was powerful in, and all this stuff. And I would sit there and I would envision that person, and I would sit there smiling, and he'd come in, I'd be like, shh, quiet, I'm busy. You know, not now. It's my meditation. He'd come in and be like, what are you doing? He'd come in and turn on the lights. What are you doing in the dark? I'd be like, leave me alone. Um, you know, he laughed at me all the time, thought I was crazy. Um, but
Well,
then
he knows now. He knows
well, they're
now.
all kind of, well, he thinks I'm kind of crazy now too, because he sees all these things that I'm putting out. But he tells me every day how proud of me he is, just for like all the things that I'm putting out in the world. He's like, I don't know how you do it. He said, I really don't. He told one of his friends that just looking at me makes him tired.
Oh.
He said, you gotta see my wife. He goes, she's like on roller skates. Just looking at her makes me tired. I don't know how she does it. And then he said, if determination paid, she'd be rich. So, and I said, I knew he was, I did a post about this the other day because I know he was talking about finances, but I feel so rich because even when I first came online, I knew nothing, like I could turn the computer on and turn it off. And now I'm teaching other people tools. So you have to give yourself grace and see that progression, there were a lot of curses that came out of my mouth that most people don't hear me say online. There were a lot of ripping my hair out moments, but it's all part of that process of who you're becoming. And we can't do that without reflecting on where we've been. So a lot of people tell you that, you can get, I hear people online saying that they heal trauma and you don't have to go back and revisit it. But you do because but you do because
You
you
know where
have
you've been, so you can figure out where you're
where
going.
you're going, because you have to understand how that trauma impacted all of your life to let it go. Well, and
And
understand
to not be there again. That's the reason.
yes,
It,
that's
it's
the
the only
whole
way you
purpose.
you can really understand it and process it completely, as opposed to
Well, you
hold
that's
it.
it,
Yeah.
and let it go. So
Yes.
you have to hold it, feel it,
Hmm.
and let it go. So,
Hmm.
and a lot of people don't want to revisit it. I mean, I've been through a lot of trauma in my life, and it's not fun looking back at it, but it does help you understand that what's happened to you is not who you are.
Right, to help you separate the two.
The two, that this was an experience. It was an isolated experience. It didn't go well. It doesn't mean that's who I have to be today, right? Um, and some people don't know how to forgive, and you do have to forgive to move on, you know. So Mary Morrissey used to do this prayer, that I love you, like whoever you were angry at, like I love you, please forgive me, I forgive you, or what, I don't remember the exact prayer, but it was really
I think
cool.
that you're talking about the Honopono prayer.
No, it's Mary Morrissey does it on her, it might be Hanabono, but Mary Morrissey does it on one of her talks, because I used to listen to a lot of her meditations. I love her. So
Yeah.
so she makes you realize that we all have a part in every situation, even the worst situations. We have a part in that in somehow. So you have to forgive their part, forgive your part, and let it go. It's not always easy, and forgiveness is tough. Um, when someone's hurt you at your core, but you do have to let it go, because if you hang on to it, they're still hurting you,
That's true.
you know?
That's true. Because then you don't have a you don't have that again, that separation. If you're holding on to it, you're carrying it with you everywhere you go. It's like it never leaves you.
Yeah. And they've moved on. They've moved on and they forgot about it, but there you are. So doing that inner work and doing that interconnection is
It's critical.
really, really about saying, okay, I've done a lot of shit in my life, good, bad, and indifferent. You know, I'm still alive. I didn't do so bad. I didn't do so bad because here I am. And I have some friends, I have some family, I have some people I
Yeah.
can count on. And where can I go from here? Because if we stay stuck it's like a disease that eats you alive little by little. It takes another piece of you, right? So most diseases that people suffer from are stress related, and it's stuff that they're holding on to in their own body. So, I tell people all the time that we have the ability to heal ourselves. People look at me like, yeah, right, Anja, but we do. And a lot of the sickness is self-directed. It's things that we've told ourselves for so long, things that we felt and we held on to, and things we stress over, and things that we complicate that aren't just really not as difficult as we make them, you know? Um,
Mhm.
so so that's my take on it. Any closing words on you on how these people can our audience, not these people, I don't mean that in a negative way, how they can take um some kind of insight with them, whether it's journaling or meditating.
Well, I think that one of the things that works for me is I like to take quotes and just kind of expand on them and really go deep into the thought process that I may be having when I read any particular types of quotes that I may be looking for. It's a practice that I've done since a teenager. I like that a lot. I think one of the biggest things that I could recommend people is to get familiar with Brene Brown's work, um, in terms of just this particular aspect of inner work, surrounding shame. Shame is one of those gigantic blocks when we talk about doing inner work. And I think that part of just really becoming um, whoever it is that we ultimately are to be within ourselves and as an expression for the world requires us to come to our realization with whatever it is that has felt uh, that put us to shame. Sometimes we don't necessarily see that right away in our faces. Sometimes the shame could come out of a brokenness from a past experience or a past relationship and things of that nature. But only as we do that inner work and start really pulling apart the different areas of our lives that are being held hostage by that quiet shame, because sometimes it's not something that is expressed out there. I think it's the critical way to really bounce back. Um, and that bouncing back doesn't necessarily have to be loud. It's just that sense that when you walk into a room, you shine. You shine because it's from within. You could be without makeup. You could be wearing jeans. You could be wearing tights. You could be undone and you shine because you shine because it's product of all that comes with it. It comes with that peace. It comes with that security. It comes with that confidence. That does not mean your life is perfect. It just means you've done the work and are willing to, even when things suck, okay? Because I personally don't sell quick fix me up anything to anybody. I have my own set of problems that I work on every day. Um, you show up. You have the power, the courage to show up, and you show up shining still. And so it's difficult because it requires you to finally show up for yourself. And I think all of us, you know, I think it's a human kind of experience, the hero's journey when you think about it, that we all go through in different aspects of our lives. So hopefully people will take a moment, whoever's listening, to say to themselves, who am I? What am I here for? How am I showing up, whether it be as a parent, as a love partner, as a professional? How am I loving, giving? What boundaries am I setting? It requires you to show up for yourself and define and redefine that as often as you need to. That's the part of shame that wants to shame us. Oh, well, you were like this yesterday. Well, that was yesterday. You actually can wake up today and say, no more. And that's the beauty of it. But shame wants to keep us trapped in these weird places. So every waking day is a new opportunity, like literally reset, reset. Oh my goodness, what a blessing. What a blessing.
I love that. And if you need some help with that inner work, I just released 4 new things to help you. More about that soon to come. So yes, yes, yes. So I've been doing a lot of that reflection, and I feel like there's always been missing tools that people need, and these things have helped me on my journey. So I sat down and wrote about them and put them in a place for you to have them too. So I think they'll help, right? What do you think?
Yep, I think so too.
I do.
I think so.
So I'm glad that you're here with us. As always, we're just two people showing up, telling you our opinions and our thought systems for how we make it through on a day-to-day basis, what we do in our own personal lives. We're not trying to imply that people should run out and take on our persona either. We
Nope.
encourage you to make your decisions about everything and anything in your life, and
Yep. Yep.
really just be who you are and feel into that. I posted on my stories today that you are enough just as you are. And that's the message that we want to put out there. So
Yep.
we're so glad you spent this time with us today. Thanks as always for watching the Souls Code, and have a good night.
Ciao.